Time for another fight prediction with your boy Formzy. So I want to talk about Usyk Joshua 2 on this one. And I didn't do an Usyk Joshua 1 prediction, so let me backtrack a little bit because I remember talking to my boy about this when this fight was first made. And I actually think even before the fight was made, he was saying to me that he thought Usyk might move up, and he thought Usyk actually had a fair chance to beat Joshua at heavyweight. It wasn't a conversation that I got too in depth with because I wasn't sure if it was happening or not and stuff like that. Sorry, this sun is like right in my face right here. I can't even see anything. But once it was made, once Usyk actually moved up to heavyweight and the fight, there we go, that's much better. And the fight was actually made, then I started discussing it more with him and shit. And it's funny because this isn't to say that I think Joshua is unbeatable. I mean, he lost to Ruiz and shit. It's not like the guy has never lost a fight or anything. And on top of that, even though he lost, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Anybody could lose a fight, but I thought even after, sorry, I got 100 fucking mosquito bites all over me. I'm scratching the shit out of myself. I still thought, like, even with a loss, even still with 2 losses or whatever, it was like, trying to think of how to explain this. Now, I've always said that I don't think Anthony Joshua has that dog in him, that fight in him. And, people always turn to the Klitschko fight. Well, he got off the canvas in the Klitschko fight and he won the fight. Yeah, he did. But there's a difference between somebody doing the right thing and somebody wanting to do the right thing. There's a difference. So Joshua is one of those people where he'll get up the first time. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to just blatantly roll over and quit. Like Victor Ortiz is a great example. Victor Ortiz will just sit in the corner and be like, yo, I quit. I'm done. I don't like my jaw or my cut, or I've been knocked down too many times. I don't know if I want to do this. I quit. And he'll literally just stand up and say, I quit. Anthony Joshua doesn't do that shit. And listen, to be clear, okay, Joshua's obviously a tough dude, bro. Anybody that gets in that boxing ring has a certain level of toughness to them. Some people get it knocked out of them very quickly when they get in that boxing ring, and it's like, all right, I had the balls to get in there, but I'm good on that. I'm done with that, or whatever the case is. So I don't want to sit here and call somebody, even somebody like Victor Ortiz, a pussy, because he's obviously not a pussy. The guy has made a career out of fighting people, but he's a pussy compared to some of the people he's fighting. You know what I mean? Or some of the other people that are out there and shit like that. So, again, just keep in mind when I say certain things about certain people, I'm comparing them to their peers and shit. Like, I'm not comparing them to regular everyday people because they're not. So, with Joshua, he'll get up. Like, he's not going to just vocally quit because he got hit with a shot. But he quits on himself in his head. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like one notch, and it's like, all right, he got up, but if we can knock him down again, he's a little bit closer to mentally giving up. So he seems to me like one of those people that has put too much time and energy and has too many people invested in him for him to just not get up after the first knockdown and just be like, I quit, man, that hurt. I think he's got too much pride. I think he's too good of an athlete. I think he's invested too much time and energy. I think he has too many people behind him to just do that simple. But, and I use my Golden Gloves fight as an example all the time. I found out early in that fight that I wasn't winning on the scorecards. I knew that right away. Like 30, 40 seconds into that fight, I said, okay. And I realized, like, I know that this probably isn't going to end well for me, but instead of conceding to just being jabbed to death and losing 3 rounds to none and kind of just, save and face and, you know what, this dude's got my number. Let me not open up too much. Let me just be very defensive, stay on the back foot, try to run around. Yeah, he's going to beat me, but I don't want to get beat up. You know what I'm saying? Instead, I did the exact opposite, and I said, you know what? Fuck technique. I don't have a trainer. I didn't go through years or months of training to get into this. I just know how to fight. I just been in a lot of street fights. Again, that doesn't carry you in a boxing ring, and I mean sometimes it does, but only to a certain level. And I wanted to see what level it would carry me to, quite frankly, and or at least I know who I am, right? And I understood that I wasn't going to just learn some other crazy shit in the middle of that first round that was going to make me adjust and be a better boxer than this kid who had probably been boxing for 10 years, whatever it was, in a boxing gym with a trainer and shit. Even if he wasn't, he had way, way more boxing training experience than I did, as I had literally none. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to put this kid in a position where I'm going to force him to knock me out, or he's going to get knocked out. And I kind of just I don't want to say I turned it into a street fight, because I didn't, because he did a great job of pivoting, keeping the fight in the center, walking me down behind his jab, things like that. But the point that I'm trying to make is, mentally in my head, I made a decision. You know what? Instead of just conceding to a loss and letting this kid just outpoint me to death and save and face and not really getting hurt, I'm going to fucking go for it right now. And I'm going to put him in a position where he's either going to stop me or I'm going to stop him. Fuck it. It gives me more of a 50-50 chance, even though it's probably not a 50-50 because he's better than me. And the chances of him stopping me are probably higher than me stopping him. But fuck it. I'm putting you in that position. I want to see you bite down and stop me, because maybe you can't. He did. You know what I mean? I never went down or anything, but the ref stopped the fight because the difference in skill level was apparent, and it wasn't close on the cards. I was down by, 4 points at the end of the second round with 1 round to go. So, I mean, there was obviously no reason for the fight to continue at that point. But again, I put that kid in a position of, hey, listen, fuck it. I'm going to come for you, and you're either going to stop me or I'm going to stop you. He did the right thing. He stepped up. He planted his feet. He, he stayed behind his jab. He put combinations together, and he stopped me. So to me, Joshua is not like that. Like he'll go down and get up, and he'll still kind of try to win. Like, if his moments and his opportunities come, he'll try to take them. But in the back of his mind, I believe that he's also looking for a way to get out of there. Maybe not to get stopped and to totally get out of there, but to get out of the real danger that he's in. So he may not take the same chances anymore, even though he knows in not taking those chances, he's conceding to losing the fight, which we probably saw perfectly in the first Usyk fight, which leads me back to my point of what I was saying in the first fight when I was talking to my boys. So the point of me explaining all of that is that I still felt, for some reason, and this had a lot to do with my years of experience of watching boxing and seeing certain people where a lot of times they'll try to sell the fight and try to convince you this guy this or this whatever, and you kind of buy into this hope, and then it's this one-sided fight, or it was no shot of this guy winning, or whatever the case is. It was a mismatch, it was a blowout, whatever winds up being said. And I'm not saying it happens all the time, but in the amount of time that I've been watching boxing, which is probably about 30 years at this point, I have seen it happen many times. So I kind of just got to that point in my head where I was like, you know what, bro? And it was what I was saying to my boy. I said, you know what, bro? I just think Joshua is one of these guys where, is he the best guy out there? No, probably not. And I think the fact that he, has a little bit of that mental softness, for lack of a better term, in his head, comparatively to a guy like Fury, who you're literally going to have to fucking pin to the floor to keep down. It's not the same level. So I just felt like you can have a certain level of skill and still lose fights due to that, right? Somebody's going to land a lucky shot on you. Somebody's going to catch you. You know what I'm saying? Floyd Mayweather was probably the greatest defensive fighter in boxing history, And I mean, I don't want to sound stupid. This sounds ridiculous, 5 times out of 50 fights. But I mean, he got rocked probably like 5 times. So if it's gonna happen, if it could happen to the greatest defensive fighter of all time at a lower weight class, it can certainly happen to a heavyweight, even if he's a really good fighter. Which I do think AJ is a really good fighter. But my point in saying that was kind of just to reiterate. You know what? I know he's lost, but I still just think that he's better than most of these other guys, these Dillian Whites, these Derek Chisoras, these Joseph Parkers, these things like that. I just felt like, Anthony Joshua was on a different level from those guys. Maybe not from everybody else, but from those guys. And it was kind of what I was saying to my boy. I said, you know what? I don't think... And in my defense, I knew nothing about Usyk at this point. I had maybe seen Usyk highlights, if that. Possibly not even. Anybody that really follows boxing intently knows that at this current point in time, cruiserweight is not an overly packed division with a lot of big names and a lot of big fights and stuff like that. So, in the past couple of years with my kids and stuff, like I said, the past 2 years or so, I've gotten a lot more into the boxing, but the 5 or 6 years prior to that, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it was, I had kind of fallen off a little bit. And I don't say that to say that I stopped watching boxing, but I stopped driving out to the Bronx for amateur fights. I stopped, paying $200 a month for cable to watch fucking Wednesday night fights or Friday night fights or whatever was on ESPN, or, this guy is 1-1 versus a guy who's making his pro debut, and I would be able to follow people's careers even sometimes before they turn pro. I would go watch some of these people and I would know them. Marcus Brown's a perfect example. I've been watching Marcus Brown since Marcus Brown was a teenager, since way before Marcus Brown even went to the Olympics. I used to go watch Marcus Brown fight in the Golden Gloves tournaments way before he was ever, known by anybody. So that's a perfect example of somebody that I knew when they were 14, 15 years old, that I was being told, okay, this kid might be something one day, and now here we are. Marcus Brown has, whatever his record is, he's probably like 30-2 or something like that. And again, not the greatest fighter out there, but the kid's made a hell of a career for himself. It's somebody that I've been watching as a little kid and shit like that. So it's cool seeing shit like that. But again, I fell off to the point where I wasn't watching, cruiserweight fights that I didn't really know the people and things like that. So I wasn't really up on Usyk and actually how technically skilled and technically sound Usyk was to even really entertain that Usyk was going to win that fight. And to me, it was just a couple of things coupled. It was, Anthony Joshua's star power. It was the fact that I didn't really know too much about Usyk. It was the fact that Joshua was huge and I knew Usyk was moving up from a weight division under. Those kind of things I just said to my boy. I said, listen, bro, I get what you're saying about Usyk, but I just think it's another one of these kind of hype job type of things where it's like, yo, I think this dude can do it. And then he gets in there and it's like, he shouldn't have moved up from cruiserweight. And it's like, well, that's not what you were fucking saying leading up to the fight. You were trying to convince me that this guy had a shot. So that was kind of what I thought about it. And then I'll never forget this. I watched a random interview with Usyk. It didn't even have nothing to do with the Joshua fight. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even in English. It was something random. It might have came on an autoplay or something like that. And I'm listening to the things this dude is saying. I'm listening to the translator, I should say. And I said, yo, this dude might win this fight, because I already have my predetermined opinion of Joshua's mental toughness, right? And that's always going to be there. The same way that Roy Jones didn't have a great chin. But Roy Jones was so fucking good and so fucking athletic that it didn't matter until his 40-something fight, 40th, whatever the hell it was. You know what I'm saying? He got through all of the, he got through 40, 50 fights, whatever it was, without being able to take a great shot because he was so fucking good. Now, I'm not saying Anthony Joshua was as good as Roy Jones. I'm just trying to make a point that, yes, I know that mental toughness is a question there, but is Usyk going to be the one to really bring that out of him? He's not even a heavyweight. You know what I mean? So I kind of was leaning like that route. And then when I heard the shit Usyk was saying, I said, yo, I think just based on Joshua's mentality and Usyk's mentality, I now believe, after seeing this interview, that Usyk has a fair chance on winning this fight. And I've still never seen Usyk fight at this point. Just based off the things this guy was saying, not really just about boxing, but about his mentality. So I called my boy back up, and I'm like entertaining the conversation now, and I asked my pops for odds. I said, "What's the odds on the fight?" I think they were like 3-1, 4-1, whatever they were. Usyk was an underdog, and I said, "Yo, I gotta take this, bro." I think I threw like $50 on Usyk and won close to $200. So I want to be clear when I make my prediction for this fight where I was at in the first one. I really didn't think Usyk had very much of a chance going, when the fight was signed. And then just his mentality alone and the odds, because if Usyk wasn't a big favorite, I wouldn't have just bet him on his mentality. But when I heard that mentality, coupled with what I believe Joshua's mentality is, coupled with the 3 or 4-1 odds being given to me, I was like, yeah, I got to take that. Now I want to be clear. The fight happened. I watched the fight, right? And I'm actually very torn about the first fight, because we have an instance where, first of all, I think Usyk could have stopped Joshua in that fight. I'm not saying that he should have, because he won the fight. So it's hard to say, well, he should have done this, but when he got the result he wanted, right? So maybe he shouldn't have, because maybe if he pressed for it, Joshua catches him or whatever. I'm not saying I think that's going to happen, but I'm just saying he won the fight, so I don't want to go off on some, Usyk should have stopped him. But I definitely thought there was more than one occasion in that fight where Usyk had the opportunity to stop him, and he probably was capable of stopping him. And I'm not knocking Usyk for not pulling it off. I'm just saying that I definitely think those moments were there for the taking. I thought somebody just busted into my garden, but nah, it was just a pinwheel fell over. So now, after having watched that first fight, it's like we saw exactly what I explained to you in the first 10-15 minutes of this video, where Joshua didn't quit. He didn't go to his corner and say, I'm not going to fight anymore. He didn't, take a flop and fucking take a 10 count. He hung in there, but was he really trying to win? Like, I know he wanted to win, right? Like, I know you're in there and you still want to win the fight. But are you willing to take the risks that you have to take to win? And he just doesn't seem willing to do that. Now, he's gone out and he's gotten, I believe it's Robert Garcia. I apologize if I'm wrong on that. I believe he got Robert Garcia to be in his corner for this fight. And I think that's a good move. Not just because it's Robert Garcia, who's, a great trainer, but I just think it's a good move for Joshua, because I just think that when we keep seeing the same pattern, this is not to say that it's the trainer's fault, but I just think something has to change. And I don't know who watches hockey. Hockey and boxing are my two sports, so I'm always kind of, trying to relate things that, to get people to maybe understand better. There's a lot of times in a hockey game, right, where the score goes to a certain number, or something happens in a certain amount of time, or you see whatever, and you take the goalie out. All right, 3-0, 6 minutes into the game, goalie's out, right? The casual fan, which is funny because this is what we call people all the time in boxing, casuals, but I'm sure there's casuals in any sport. The casual fans think the goalie's getting pulled because he's not playing good, which might be the case in some instances, but it's not necessarily the case all the time. Sometimes you just pull the goalie because for whatever reason, the team just looks like shit, they're not responding, and you just try to do something. You call a timeout, you start a fight, you pull the goalie, you're just trying to do something to get something to change. So when I say I think it's a good move for Joshua, it's a two-part thing. I think that Robert Garcia is probably trending in the right direction, where you're getting a little bit more of like a tougher Mexican type of dude that I think maybe could try to instill some sort of mind frame in you. Listen, Anthony Joshua is who he is, right? He's not going to turn into Tyson Fury overnight. I understand that, but these things can be improved upon, where you can mold your mind frame and your perspective to be a little bit more willing to go through the trenches when shit really gets ugly. And I think that, unfortunately, what's odd about this is I think that Joshua may have to make this fight ugly in order to win, and in making the fight ugly, he might get knocked out because he doesn't have a great chin. I don't want to say he's got a terrible chin, but he doesn't have a great chin. I mean, he's been floored many times. We're in the heavyweight division, so anybody could hurt anybody. And Usyk hurt him in the last fight. So we can't even sit here and say, yeah, but can Usyk hurt him? He came up from cruiserweight. Well, we know Usyk can hurt him because he hurt him multiple times in the last fight. So, I think it's a bit of a slippery slope here where, Joshua has to almost be the opposite of what he really is to win this fight. Joshua has to be the bigger guy, the I'm going to impose my will on the smaller guy and things like that. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not sure if Joshua can really be that guy. I don't know. We're going to have to see. I don't want to drag this out too long. We're already 21 minutes in, and the reason for that is because I really wanted to go back and recap on my thoughts on the first fight. Since I didn't make a Joshua Usyk 1 preview, I wanted to go back and kind of tell you guys how I got to the stance that I'm at today. But at the end of the day, man, I'll tell you this. My prediction is I think Usyk's going to win another decision, and I just think there's a lot of factors that play into that. I think Usyk's capable of stopping him, but I think Usyk already beat him. Usyk's already got the belts and stuff like that. Usyk's hurt him a couple of times. I don't really think at this point Usyk has anything to prove in a fashion where he's going to go looking to knock Joshua out. I mean, maybe he does, and all credit to him if he comes in like that and he does it. That's a fucking hell of a statement. But I'm just trying to think rationally here. When you think about the dynamics behind the fight, Usyk doesn't have to go in here and obliterate Joshua. He's already beat him once, and he's just, acknowledging the contract, the terms of the contract, and giving them the rematch. I mean, I'm sure Usyk is even more confident now that he can win the second fight than he was in the first one, if he needed any more confidence. That's one factor I don't think it will be stopped. The second reason that I don't think it will stop early is because it's kind of like the Deontay Wilder thing with Fury, right? And Fury kept saying, like, you could teach this guy everything you want in a 2-month, 3-month span, but when I start cracking him in the face, he's going to revert back to what he knows, because this is what people that don't box don't understand. And there's even other sports I try to explain to people with hockey, right? Okay, line 5 pucks up here and put an empty net in front of somebody and say, try to hit the crossbar. I mean, who the fuck knows? They might get lucky and hit it, or somebody might just be a good shooter and they might hit it 3, 4 out of 5 times. That doesn't mean they're a good hockey player. Can they pick spots when somebody's defending them and there's a goalie in the net and there's all these other decisions to make? So you could be taught the right thing to do in every scenario, but when somebody's fucking punching you in the face and hurting you and 20,000 people, or if it's in Wembley's or whatever, maybe 70, 80,000 people are fucking screaming at you and are happy or pissed off that you're hurt and you're rocked and your ears are ringing and holy shit, what the fuck is going on? It's hard to think clearly, and it's hard to remember some things that you've been taught, especially newer things, and you revert to patterns, to this muscle memory. Oh, woof, whatever you throw, right? And that was what Fury said. You could teach him whatever you want, and it couldn't have played out more perfectly than what Fury said, because Wilder actually did come out fighting a different fight, and he looked like a better fighter. Which, fuck, man, I'll give Wilder all the credit in the world, because I did not think that he was going to improve going into that third fight. I thought that he was delusional enough to believe that Fury cheated, and his suit was too heavy, and that was why he lost. And he believed, as long as I don't wear a dumbass suit into the ring, and Fury doesn't have egg weights in his hands, then I'm gonna win. And that's not gonna fucking help you. But to his credit, he did make adjustments. He came out throwing jabs to the body. He was doing pretty well and stuff like that. But then, when it gets into a dogfight and you start getting hit and you start getting tired, you're fighting for your life out there, bro. You're in the trenches, and you do what you know, and you revert back to what you know. And it was perfectly predicted by Tyson Fury. And I kind of, you know, tend to believe that this is going to be a similar situation. I think Joshua could be told all the right things. I think Joshua can practice all the right things. I think Joshua can say all the right things. I even think Joshua can come out and attempt to do all the right things. But is he able to keep that new type of mind frame when shit gets ugly? When it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds and he's tired and he's been dropped or he's cut or, you know, Usyk's pressing him or whatever the case is. I don't know that I'm completely sold that Joshua is going to just start swinging for the fences and go all out and impose his size on Usyk and put Usyk in a position where, hey, listen, motherfucker, you're going to either put me out or I'm going to put you out. Let's go right now. Not sure that I'm sold Joshua's really going to do that. So, again, I apologize for the long video. I had a lot to talk about on this one, but I'm going with Usyk by decision on this one. I don't even want to call unanimous or split or nothing like that because, honestly, that's just playing games on the judging guessing. I don't want to fucking play games. Who the hell knows who's in whose pocket, who's a fucking terrible judge or whatever the hell the case is. But I do think at the end of the day that Usyk is going to win this fight. I think it will be a little bit more entertaining of a fight than the first one because I feel like Joshua... He's got to do something here, right? Like, it's like, even if Joshua loses, I think the fashion that he loses in is important because he's already lost to this guy. So if he loses, I don't think it's that big of a deal. He's already lost to this guy. We got another loss on his record. I understand that, but it's the same person that already beat him. It's not that big of a deal. But again, if Joshua's mentally soft or shows any type of quit or, you know, reluctancy or tentativeness and things like that, I just think it adds fuel to the fire of where this guy might not be capable of going, and that kind of shallows out, you know, his opportunities in his future. But we'll have to see, man. I mean, I'll be very impressed if Joshua really makes that many adjustments to really make this a totally different fight and drag Usyk into the trenches and make Usyk question whether he should have moved up to heavyweight or not. That remains to be seen. I would love to see it happen. Nothing against Usyk. But, you know, I'm a fight fan, bro, so I would love to see Anthony Joshua come out and show some improved technical skill in some areas, you know, maybe some improved defense, some footwork, whatever it is. But I really want to see Joshua come out, bite down on that mouthpiece, and just make a mental decision of, hey, I'm here to win this fucking fight. And even if I lose, like, we're going to war right now, bro. So we'll see on Saturday what happens. But final prediction, Usyk by decision. I don't think it's going to be too different than the first one. I just think it'll be a little bit more entertaining. Peace.